Welcome to the Consultants Way podcast, where we explore the world of professional services consulting. Hosted by Dean McMann and Anthony Paluska, each episode delivers expert insights, real-world stories, and interviews with top consultants to help you refine your consulting skills.
Welcome to the Consultants Way podcast. We've got Dean McMann and Anthony Paluska, and we're going to cover a couple of just topical things about the consulting industry, about professional services that we've come across in the past couple of days.
Yeah, some of them are disturbing.
Yeah.
And cause us to scratch our. It's easier for me to scratch my head, but scratch our heads a little bit.
I can scratch my head. You can't see the red marks when I do it.
Okay, all right.
So first one that jumped out, which kind of triggered this whole conversation a little bit, was the recent report out by Bloomberg that the big four consulting firms have laid off 9,000 consultants this year. And it's...
Hey, you think that's bad? I read that Australia's cut the budget to the big four by like $1 billion.
A lot, yes. Australia is not spending money on...
If you run the Sydney office right now, it's going to be a lot of trouble.
Yes, yeah, the government practice.
The government practice.
Yeah, everybody else. It's
okay.
Mining.
Mining's probably good. Yeah. Still. Anyway,
yes,
that's a lot of layoffs.
It is. It is. Yeah. And it's in line with kind of anecdotally what we're seeing, what we're feeling. We're in the hiring process right now, and as we're going through that, we see lots of people that historically we wouldn't have seen in the marketplace. 3 years worth of experience.
To clarify that, you can always hire very senior people out of consulting firms that their life's not going like they wanted, or even right before partner, or in industry, somebody who stalled out at whatever the title they may use, director. Very hard to get 3-year people.
Yeah.
And that's the flood right now.
Yeah. You put in the time, the effort, all of those sorts of things at that level, and you do that because you're committed to the big firm and you're committed to growing and at least moving up a rung or two if you're able to make it. And there's a lot of good talent out there.
And the firms have put all that money into you, not getting it back yet.
Right.
So that's a difficult situation for everybody.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting.
But I think that's everybody's doing that across the consulting hierarchy. I think it's not just that's a litmus test for what's happening to everybody. I know McKinsey likewise had some significant changes. I haven't read the data on BCG or Bain, but I imagine they fell along in line a little bit. And we hear that's lack of demand, but I think it's equally overhiring. And we did a lot of work on that.
Yeah.
In another talk, but that's just disturbing. We care about the industry, we care about the people, and
it's something we'll be keeping an eye on and trying to figure out what the root cause of some of that is. I agree with you. It's I think overhiring has a lot to do with it. I think there's concerns about demand or about AI's role in making everybody more efficient. Those might have some drivers to it, but I don't think that's the primary piece.
Talking about AI, I've been reading that everybody's AI practice has gotten to be really big. And that reminded me of a story a few years ago. I was talking to a partner from one of the big firms, and he told me that his practice has moved to be cloud. And I go, I didn't know you guys did anything cloud. He goes, no, I don't know anything with cloud. They just want to count cloud revenue bigger. So I imagine there's a ton of practices that have nothing to do with AI that are now called AI for AI.
I remember big data was...
Big data. Hey, give the consulting industry a wave and we'll ride that thing.
That's right.
And we like to tell. But that's also an interesting point. The consulting industry is just in the news and more scrutinized than it used to be.
Yes.
I mean,
sometimes rightfully so.
No question that
I have a story I can share later from our news list of maybe rightfully so, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, lawsuits called into question, particularly when you're doing bankruptcy, M&A work, working with private equity. A lot of the government just can't stand that they don't control private equity as easily as they do publicly traded companies. And that causes this over thing. But the king of all the strange things of inspecting the consulting firms right now is China. right?
Yeah.
So, and China, you don't know ever with China if the news you get was actually what happened in China, right? Because you've got their government controlling information, then you've got the precepts of who got it. But I read an article that the Chinese just didn't like that consulting firms can find out about what's going on inside a company. And then that data would be shared outside of the four walls of China's view of information and everything. And PwC's got a big, topically right now, PwC's got a big problem there. But other firms have been kicked out or closed or told they can't work there anymore. So that's going to be a big unraveling that happens.
Yeah, I mean, PwC's problem at the moment is pressure from the U.S. side of things around not doing or trying to pull back on the work that it's currently doing for the CCP. So
yeah, and there is a lot of people. You were just telling me someone came out recently.
Marco Rubio
said, "Hey, I don't think consulting firms should be doing work there," and consulting firms are like sharks. If they don't keep eating and moving, they going backwards is not good.
And there's plenty of money to be spent over there, but yeah, it feels.
It's interesting to see how it works out as we have BRICS out there solidifying who they are. We have that little problem in Northern Europe. We've got a Middle East problem. So as these relationships, I've always remembered that not that we're in this kind of situation, but history matters. Before Germany and France got into World War I, they were the largest each other's trading partners, right? So you just never know on that kind of thing. But it's a dangerous place out there right now. But the consulting industry is getting backlash from all that. What else have you been reading lately about the industry? So we've got the massive exodus of people, the inspections of the business going on, a lot more in the news, a lot more big predictions I read recently. I think it was BCG that was in the newspaper of estimating that in 9-10 years, AI will be a $1 billion business in itself. And I don't know what aspect of it, because I know AI is already $1 billion, but I think it was a very specific how it affects the consulting industry. And we talk a lot about AI taking away junior consultants' activities.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think to that point, a lot of organizations are looking for an artificial intelligence strategy, and so it's driving a lot of demand right now. And so as many jobs as it's taking away at this stage, it's creating so much more opportunity for a lot of the firms that have figured out a way to at least help some of these large organizations build out their AI strategy for how they want to at least view the
We all know it can be very powerful. I know a Fortune 100 client that she said, I think we can take out 20% of our cost over time with AI. Now, when you hear that, I naturally thought that was people cost. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it probably is. And that's always troubling. It's not troubling to get better. It's just troubling to have people taken out of jobs. So, in our particular firm, we're on revenue growth. So we're allowed to say that bothers us.
Yeah. If we do our jobs right, organizations should grow, right?
We want people hiring people.
Yeah. Good. Anything else?
Yeah, I came across some stuff that the firms all use a certain percent of their available talent to help nonprofits and to help NGOs, like particularly in Africa, where my family started an NGO, and when I was a kid, my parents were missionaries in East Africa. So I keep track of that. But I read that they're having to curtail that a great deal right now, which is interesting because you're laying off, right? So it means you have extra talent, but you're not applying that talent in a more traditional ways that you used to be very, very generous. And I think one of the reasons in this one article I read was the scrutiny issue, they had a situation where they were helping in some adoptions, and then when they got to the bottom of the adoptions, the kids weren't orphans. They were just looking for a better life for their kids in the U.S. And that's a sticky place if you're a big firm to go, hey, we just put our people there to volunteer to help. We don't know any of the rules here or the laws, and that's weird. Also, we hear a lot of pushback right now in the firms on their DEI programs, right? And I don't know where that's going to go. You hear a lot about. I think there's not a person who doesn't want more positive diversity.
Yeah.
And maybe we weren't getting that outcome, and I don't know, but you do hear a lot right now about at least DEI being on the back burner, if not completely, at least, and maybe they just want to use a different word now. Maybe that word just got shopped too much, and it got a little shop worn. And again, we're doing this conversation on election day, so it's that day is strange in itself with lots of
yes. The next 2 months and beyond will be distracting from all of these topics anyway, and I get asked a lot. What do I think the impact on the industry will be in a post-election? To be honest, I don't. In this particular election, I don't think there's going to be a near-term boost or drain. Different groups will interpret it and make different bets on public companies. And public companies having more money, they are still the biggest buyer of professional consulting, professional services. That has an echo effect, but I haven't read any policies, although I have, as you have, I have international clients. A lot of them are worried about tariffs, depending on how this goes down. So. Yeah, I mean, I think independent of who wins, right? It's kind of the government spending, and whatever happens or doesn't happen with that will impact demand, right? The more money that, right? There's the, depending on what you're hearing, right? There's the, we want to control spending and we want to rein in some government in some areas that can create some big boost to the economy and could push things from the private sector into the public sector, which would help consulting. And it might just shift around where opportunities are for consulting. And if government spending increases or at least remains the same as it's been over the past couple of years, there's lots of cash in the marketplace to be used to invest in consulting services or improvement. So I think you can make the argument either way. Yeah, I think either way you can see some positives from it. It'll be really interesting to see how it shakes out, and if there is a trickle down effect one way or the other. Yeah. And one of the bellwethers I always think is, are they out at the universities and the MBA programs hiring? And how are those prices, salaries affecting? So salaries are, they say flat. I think they're actually down from a couple years ago. I think they're flat relative to inflation. Yeah. I mean, or down, right? Yeah, I mean, you saw a lot of uptick, but if you include inflation, we're definitely down. Yeah. And that tells you something. Also, I don't think it's as bad as it was 12 months ago, but I don't think they're as aggressively hiring as they, and leave out the COVID blip. But even before that, I think they were more aggressively hiring than they are now. Mm-hmm. But I think that's a bellwether of their view of, there's a lot of instability right now, a lot of interesting things going on. Yeah. Well, that's our little update on news and consulting.